welcome back to episode 22 of season 4. We are back, or I guess I should say I'm back because this episode is a solo one for me because my co-host is in Oregon right now. He is shredding the slopes up in Mount Hood right now, snowboarding with some friends. So he's enjoying his nice mini vacation, but he will be back next week to do our Super Bowl preview because we have the matchup. It's set after conference champions were determined this week. Um, we're going to talk about it a little bit. Let's start with obviously the NFC side first, and then we'll get to the AFC. But the NFC championship became one of my worst nightmares, I think. Commanders and Eagles, two teams that I really, really, really do not like, obviously, because they are rivals of my team, the Cowboys. Um, but this one was really, really one-sided. I thought the Eagles were going to win this game. Greg thought the Commanders were going to win, so I obviously got this prediction right. So I think we ended up actually going 1-1 since he got the AFC side right. But nonetheless, this game really started off pretty well. I guess you could say for the Commanders early. Probably a pretty impressive opening drive. I think they had an 18 play drive. 18 plays. That's a statement right there. And you have multiple fourth down conversions, but you end up settling for 3 points. And that right there was a mini win for the rest of the game because obviously we know the next play after that, after the kickoff, Saquon Barkley goes 60 yards to the house to give the Eagles a lead. Now, I think going back to this first drive for the Commanders, they're going for it on fourth down multiple times. Fourth and short, they keep getting it. Jaden Daniels keeps making plays. And then for some reason on the last play, they get into very, I guess you could say, comfortable field goal range. And then they decide to send Zane Gonzalez out for a chip shot field goal. Now, the thing that I don't understand is, and I think Tom Brady and Kevin Burkhardt touched on it on the broadcast, is why would you, I guess, consider kicking a field goal when you were aggressive on fourth down, and then now you turn conservative? So from Dan Quinn's perspective, yes, I understand that it's early in the game. You want to get the lead, just, start off strong. But the message that it sends to your team is we're playing quote unquote scared in a sense. It's like they were already in field goal range a first down ago that they had from one of their other fourth down conversions. So what is the difference then? If you're already just trying to get into field goal range, then I can understand that. But they had multiple fourth down conversions. They were already in field goal range from the series before. Why is that the time to kick the field goal? I think Jaden Daniels, fourth and short, probably one of the most dangerous players in the NFL because he can beat you with his arms or with his arm and his legs. Just a very dynamic player. So that was the questionable part. And I thought, interesting. And then obviously Saquon Barkley houses a long touchdown run ensuing that. So from there, it was like, oh, okay. That kind of like almost set the tone for the game, I thought. And then just kind of a wall just came crashing down in terms of turnovers. I mean, the fumble, I think, by De'Ami Brown with Zach Bond and Cooper DeJean kind of stripping the ball out. Like, that's a tough one to have for a guy that's been playing pretty well this postseason in De'Ami Brown, having a breakout postseason, kind of rejuvenating his career in a sense. But that leads to another touchdown for Saquon. So you're already playing catch up. You can't really establish a run game. You're one dimensional on offense with Jaden Daniels. And yes, He's a dynamic player, but anytime you make a quarterback or a team one-dimensional, it makes it a little bit easier to defend because you know what's coming. Um, but really, the story of this game, I think, was that first drive. It sets the tone, and as we've been saying for really obviously this postseason and years past, it's all about playing clean football. The Commanders, they did not play clean football. Bottom line, they had I think three fumbles and a Jaden Daniels interception. That's four turnovers. Granted, I'll keep in mind, Jaden Daniels' pick was late when the game was basically out of whack already. But the fumbles I thought were very, very critical. And even the second fumble, the Eagles score. You fumble on the kickoff return, and then you give them another free touchdown ensuing that. Like, that's the kind of things that when you're the inferior team on paper, you can't be doing those kind of things against a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, who are just too good talent wise, top to bottom. And the only way that you can beat that kind of team, you got to have some luck, but you got to play clean football and you got to have good quarterback play. And I think with that adding up, Jalen Hurts, was he spectacular? No, but he didn't do anything to cost his team the game. And I think he's doing a great job right now of managing the game, letting Saquon and that offensive line take over the game, use his legs when he has to. Um, so I commend him for that. He hasn't had that situation yet. Now we'll talk about it next week. He will probably have to have a moment or two where he will have to use his arm to beat the other team's defense. So we'll keep that in mind for next week. But Jalen Hurts did enough, I think, to not limit, the mistakes. I should say limit the mistakes. Bad choice of words for that. But the Commanders, just kind of a shocking performance because, yes, they were the underdogs. Yes, they're quote unquote inexperienced, but they've been really disciplined this year, I think, with Dan Quinn at the helm. Obviously, former DC of my team with the Dallas Cowboys, but very uncharacteristic, especially with these first games that they've played in the postseason, beating Tampa Bay on the road. They were, I thought, the cleaner team. They didn't make that big mistake like Baker fumbling the ball. And then you go back to last week when they played Detroit, upset the NFC favorites on the road again. How were they playing that game? Well, Jaden Daniels played pretty clean. Detroit, they were the ones that were kind of making mistakes, hurting themselves, especially late. So for the most part, the Commanders were clean, but this game, it just wasn't their day. And there really isn't anything to hang their hat on to be disappointed, honestly, unbiasedly. Jaden Daniels is going to be one of those guys, I think, in this league for many years to come. If he takes care of his body, learns how to not take the big hit at times, kind of like what Lamar was going through when he first came into the league. He was a guy that was running around, doesn't really slide, trying to get extra yards. Like as a quarterback, we don't really need that. If it's the postseason or if it's a Super Bowl, big third down, okay. But over the course of a long regular season, certain moments, like you don't need to take, an extra 2 yards and risk getting injured, I think. So if he can learn how to take care of himself on the field, obviously off the field, and then obviously just continue to develop in the passing game, he is going to be, he's already one of the top five. You can make a case, maybe for sure top 10 quarterbacks in this league, I think. And he's shown that he's had that clutch gene in him. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to deal with him twice a year for the next 10 years at least. So lucky me. But the Commanders, when you have a franchise quarterback who's on a rookie deal, you have the luxury to continue to make moves, make your team better around Jaden Daniels because you don't have to pay that big contract. You can spread that money to receivers, making your defense. You have totally the floor is open for reinforcements to come. And I think Dan Quinn obviously recognizes that. And they're going to be in a good spot for the next couple of years before they have to pay Jaden Daniels the big bucks. And even after that, they'll be fine. So as long as the money keeps coming and Jaden Daniels develops, they'll be competing year in and year out. So they definitely exceeded everyone's expectations this year. But at the end of the day, man, the Eagles were, you could make a case, the most consistent team in the NFC, really, for the past, after week 2 of the NFL season, I think, honestly. Yeah, well, you can say Detroit. I picked Detroit to win the NFC and the Super Bowl. Um, but they were injured. They were injured pretty bad. I picked them truly on their offense and their quote unquote team of destiny. But the Eagles were pretty consistent, honestly, towards the end of the season. And the most important thing was they were healthy. There's no significant injury, key player that's missing. I mean, the luck is on their side with the injuries, and that's a huge part on winning championships in any sport. You have to be healthy and get lucky with that. And the luck was on their side. So with that, them being well coached, having a great foundation up front with their D line and their run game, they can ride that all the way to the Super Bowl. And that's what they did. So the Eagles did what they had to do. Saquon gets to his first Super Bowl. Happy for him. I was a huge fan of him at Penn State. Then he got drafted to the Giants, and then I was like, man, why do I have to cheer against him now? Because I really liked him, but he's on the rival Giants, and now he's on the Eagles, unfortunately. So, I mean, good for him, honestly. He's had some tough years in New York, so maybe this is his one and only shot at a Super Bowl ring. So hopefully he balls out and makes the most of his opportunity. But it's going to be a daunting task for him because the big bad boys of the AFC live and move on to try to complete a three-peat. Yep, let's move over to the AFC because probably maybe the game of the year so far. We said that last week with the Buffalo and Baltimore, but man, Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes, winner going to the Super Bowl. That's NFL dream right there for moneymakers and ratings. But this game, obviously much more competitive than the NFC Championship, but kind of a game that it was like, yep, you could see it playing out this way where the Chiefs get up front, Buffalo, stays within striking distance, and then they catch a little break here and there. They get the lead, and then Patrick Mahomes, he just continues to do his thing. Josh Allen is going to have a chance, and we'll see what happens from there. And then, when you got the best closer in the game in Patrick Mahomes, you kind of know how that's going to end. So I would say it's a pretty predictable script in terms of how this game played out. But the game itself, I thought Buffalo going into this game was going to win because I said the one thing is they had to win the turnover battle. They had to win it. And they had 4 fumbles, I think. They recovered all of them. So they put the ball on the ground a little bit. Luckily, didn't hurt them. Patrick Mahomes had a fumble, so they won the turnover battle. Josh Allen specifically, no turnovers. I was like, that is the key. Josh Allen, he can make these spectacular plays, and we saw it, what he can do with these. How did you make that throw kind of play? But yet he has that kind of a Brett Favre-esque, play style where it's like, well, I can make this big play So I'm going to keep doing it until they stop it, and then he'll throw a bad interception or fumble the ball or do something that's like, man, Josh, like you can't do that. You can't do that in that situation. He played clean football, and he's been doing that this entire season. And I was like, this is the recipe to beat the Chiefs. Josh Allen, he's going to be Superman, but he's playing clean ball, so he's not giving away possessions. Patrick Mahomes, on the other hand, the rest of the season wasn't like Patrick Mahomes esque in terms of MVP of the league. Now, we recognize his greatness. He's still that dude at quarterback, and especially in the playoffs. And to his credit, he had the one fumble, but he didn't make any other bad decisions, I thought. So, it was kind of a wash there in a sense. But if that was the case, I would have took Buffalo. But, I guess foolish me picking against Patrick Mahomes at home with the Arrowhead crowd is just a foolish mistake on my part. Um, but I thought, for Buffalo's sake, they did enough to win. And I think if you would have asked Sean McDermott, hey coach, Josh Allen is gonna have the ball. You're gonna be down 3. You got 2.5 minutes, 3.5 minutes to score a touchdown to win the game. All 3 of your timeouts. Would you take this situation? Or would you take a random situation and hope it plays out? If I'm Coach McDermott, I would take that situation all the time. You got your franchise quarterback with a chance to win the game in Arrowhead with one drive. To win the game, not just to tie the game. He could win the game with a touchdown with 3 minutes to play. I'm taking that all the time. And I think that was that legacy drive for Josh. He had it. And everybody has the narrative as well. The Bills, they always beat him in the regular season, but they just can't beat him in the playoffs. And the same thing happened this year. Same movie, same script. They have that chance at the end, and then they come up short. Like, we'll talk about it. I mean, that 4th down play, Spags calls a great cornerback blitz, kind of catches Buffalo off guard. Josh, he's just scrambling, extending the play, has to chuck it up in what I thought it looked like he was chucking it up because, well, you can't take a sack on 4th down. You got to at least give your receiver a chance. Not only does he give his receiver a chance, it hits Dalton Kincaid in his hands. It was a diving catch, but he had a chance to make a play. Very catchable ball, and he dropped it. So kind of a weird fitting because the week before, they were on the opposite end where Mark Andrews dropped the pass to potentially tie the game, and then who knows what would have happened. But Kincaid drops this one, and that's a tough one. That was a tough one because as soon as he dropped it, I told myself, well, it's probably over. And keep in mind, Buffalo has 3 timeouts. So mathematically, this game is not over. Chiefs get stuffed. You call 3 timeouts. Josh Allen can get the ball back one more time, and we'll see. But to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, you have to basically play your best game. Josh Allen, yeah, he was great, but it's a team effort, right? You need your receivers to help you out a little bit too. You need your line to hold up a little bit. You need your coaches to have a good game plan. Everything needs to go perfect because on the other side, you got Mahomes and you got Andy Reid. Those 2 guys, 2 great minds think alike. I mean, they work perfectly together. It's the modern day Brady Belichick coach-player duo in the NFL. So what's on the other side. And it almost, I don't want to say it puts pressure on players, but it's like we have to play perfect and elevate our game to the next level on all sides of the ball. And Josh gave his guy a chance. Kincaid didn't come up with it. And that's the kind of plays that you're going to have to make, unfortunately, to beat this Kansas City team. Now, going over to that drive to kind of finish out the game for the Chiefs, anytime they're in that situation, it's crazy that it's almost a guarantee that the Chiefs will either get a first down or run out the clock. They are so good in that situation. And I think Tony Romo was calling it out. When the team has three timeouts and you have that quarterback on your side, when Andy Reid has Patrick Mahomes, I'm not going to hand off three straight times and give up, you know, 15 seconds of game time and then give the ball back to Josh Allen. Like, no, that's not how I want it to play out. Not when I have that guy up at quarterback, right? First play, okay, probably going to be a run just to, set the tone, make them burn a timeout. Let's see where we are on this second down play, presumably. So it's second and long. You want two cracks at it for Patrick Mahomes to get this first down. And I think Tony Romo explained it beautifully. It's like you want the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hands, but it has to be a high percentage. So he's not going to be throwing a deep ball down the field or a play over the middle with a post. Like it's going to be a short pass, a screen, something. But Patrick Mahomes is going to have the ability to make that read. And they call that play action. Running back runs to the flat. They dump it off. Pacheco gets the first down. I mean, that's great play calling because Patrick has the chance to dump it off. Or if they take that running back away in the flat, Mahomes he could always just take a sack to just, do like Cooper Rush, what he did against Washington. That you take a sack knowing the situation, so you force the other team to burn a timeout and not throw the ball away. So the ball is in Patrick's hands. And then you go down to the next series because they still had some timeouts. They run it again, and then it's a great scheme. Running back flares out. Everybody's crossing on one side. The running back is going to sneak out the other side with that traffic. And then it's just a foot race between a running back and a linebacker. And you have to like your chances with that getting to the outside. So I thought great play calling by Andy Reid, as always. Kind of unexpected that Samaje Perine, out of all people, would be the guy icing the game for the Chiefs because they have Kareem Hunt. They have Isaiah Pacheco. They could have used Xavier Worthy in that situation. Hollywood, like they got all these speedsters, but it's Samaje Perine stepping up. Didn't get his number called the entire game, but he's the guy that ices the game and sends the Chiefs to the Super Bowl. So have to commend that from Kansas City. I thought that was beautiful execution. They are probably the best team at closing out late game situations, whether it's they're down or they're up, trying to just milk the clock. They are so good at that. And I have to commend that because I wish my team was like that. It makes me jealous. But, for the Bills, it's just a tough one. You know, Josh Allen, fourth time in the last 5 years, you get eliminated by Mr. Mahomes. Kind of the same old story. And it sucks because in the era of Patrick Mahomes, you have great quarterbacks. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. I'm just naming those three off the top of my head. You could make a case they're Hall of Fame talents, but they might not even sniff a Super Bowl. Joe Burrow did. He came up just short. But for the most part, these guys are all getting knocked out by one guy, Patrick Mahomes. And as long as he's there, the AFC is running through Kansas City. And I don't know which one of those guys are going to crack through first and get a Super Bowl, if anything. But it's truly unfortunate for those guys, really. Because that just shows how great Patrick Mahomes is in the postseason. Truly special. Josh Allen played a heck of a game, did enough to win. Um, but it is what it is sometimes. But I think that one of the topics of this game, really over social media, has been the Chiefs and the refs. And I try not to, get caught up in that too much. Um, let's let the game decide itself. But it just, for some reason, with the Chiefs, it gets magnified by 1,000 because there are some, again, questionable calls that I'm thinking this is where we have to let the players be NFL players. And sometimes it's like, I have no words. I have no words. I have a list of penalties that I thought were very, very questionable. Very questionable. Like the Xavier Worthy catch is one. It literally looks like the ball is being pinned on the ground. They call it a catch, which by rule, you can't pin the ball on the ground to catch a ball. So that should be incomplete. It's called a catch. The Chiefs score a touchdown. Obviously, the most talked about one is the Josh Allen non-first down. To me, it looks like he got the first down. I don't know how when they review it. Yes, it has to be indisputable video evidence, but it looks like yes, his the ball has to cross, not his head. But the tip of the ball, you kind of look at the shot, kind of a bad spot. But that also goes to the previous play, which was it was a little bubble screen to Kincaid. I thought he got the first down on that play, and the ref gave a terrible spot. Looked like, and then we know there's the whole situation where one ref has the first down, and he gets overruled by the other ref that marks it short. So they got two different spots for the ball on Josh Allen's sneak. It's like, what the heck is going on? Um, Special teams, there's a couple plays where, yeah, looks like there's a couple blocks in the back that don't get called. And then another egregious one too, honestly, is Jordan Phillips. I know Jordan Phillips. He was on the Cowboys, got picked up from the Bills. They let him go after he was just a locker room disaster. Goes back to Buffalo and turns into, the good Jordan Phillips. So I don't understand that. But Jordan Phillips gets flagged for a personal foul on Travis Kelce. Um, but Travis Kelce is screaming in the face of Damar Hamlin, talking trash after Patrick Mahomes scores a touchdown. Now, I get Jordan Phillips. You don't push a guy like that. But as a ref, like, what are you looking at? Maybe you have to call a foul on both teams to send a message. Jordan Phillips, it's always the second guy that's going to get flagged. But if it's so blatantly obvious where a guy is in someone's face, right in front of the ref, which is literally taunting, I don't know how that's not called. Now, I don't know if that's a Chiefs thing, but that is a very questionable call. And things like this get magnified, especially in the day of social media. So we sound like broken records. I'll say it again, but the NFL, can you guys please just ref these games and the Super Bowl evenly? Like, I don't want any of this stuff going up on the Super Bowl and then next year and the year after that, where it's like, well, the refs, this questionable call decides the game. Because easily in this game, a lot of those calls, especially the Josh Allen one, decides the game. The Bills are up at that time. They go for it on fourth down. They're probably going to score at least a field goal. That's going to change the game for sure, put more pressure on Kansas City. But obviously, that's a momentum swing if you get a stop and then Kansas City goes down and scores. So games are won and lost with these questionable calls and calls that are what we think are correct. And when you have video evidence to back it up, you need to make the right call, especially when you have that turnover, because every turnover is reviewed. So I don't understand it. Um, I don't know if we ever will, but please, NFL, do better. Well, okay. Well, that's the conference championships. Um, Greg and I will talk about the Super Bowl next week. We'll get into a deep dive for our Super Bowl preview and picks. But before this podcast is over, I got to talk a little bit about my team because they're in the news that they got a new head coach, and it's Brian Schottenheimer. Okay, so let's just make things clear. Obviously, I'm not happy about the Brian Schottenheimer hire. Um, it's nothing against him personally. I'm actually cheering for him. He's my coach. I want him to do well. I want him to be the guy that helps lift the Lombardi trophy up. So, want to get that out there that I'm rooting for him. But the thing that was so devastating for Cowboy fans is the process of how he was hired. We have all these other teams, the Bears, the Patriots, the Jets. Right? They're interviewing the quote unquote top guys on the market. Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel, Aaron Glenn, heck, even Kellen Moore, right? You got Cliff Kingsbury. You can interview all these guys, but the one team that waits to not even get an interview is Dallas. Like, we interviewed Kellen Moore, Robert Saleh, and Leslie Frazier. No, Leslie Frazier is all you need to hear. Who in their right mind is trying to hire Leslie Frazier as a head coach? I have no idea where he was even before that. Like, I really, like, where did that come from? You have a chance this year with the Lions, especially Aaron Glenn, Ben Johnson. They're probably not going to come to Dallas because they don't want to deal with the bullshit that our ownership lays every single day, every single freaking year for the past 30 plus years. They don't want to deal with that. But you're telling me you can't even get them to interview, or you don't even have interest to interview them. Like, what the hell? You're the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry, you talk about, oh, well, everybody wants to be the coach of the Cowboys. It's the hot topic. No, I don't think so. Because I think if Ben Johnson really wanted to go to Dallas, he would wait. But that shows something that he wanted to go to Chicago. That was his preferred destination. But we wouldn't even know what Ben Johnson would want to do because you didn't even interview him. It just makes no sense. The process of it. In the beginning, too, we hear all the rumors about Dion. Now, I'm thinking, I think Dion would be great. I don't know about Dion as a coach, but I'm thinking from a fan's perspective, I just want to be excited about something at this point. We've had nothing to be excited about. Nothing. So give us something. At least Dion brings the flair. Obviously, NFL background. He has his sons coming into the NFL. Like, there's some potential for, a big shakeup in Dallas. Something that would be out of the box. But Jerry, he don't think like that. He don't think out of the box. Everything has to be his way. I'm going to play it safe. We hired Brian Schottenheimer. Brian Schottenheimer was our OC for the past 2 years. An offensive coordinator who did not call plays for who? Mike McCarthy, whom you fired from the head coaching position. So if the whole thing of firing Mike McCarthy, new voice, yada, 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 isn't Brian Schottenheimer, Mike McCarthy, like, aren't they the same thing? Like, they're in the same coaching staff. Like, you want something different, bring in something different to lead this team. Like, you're just bringing in a guy that was working under Mike McCarthy. What, like, could have just kept Mike McCarthy in that sense. Like, the process just is. I'm speechless. I have no words because how can you be this stupid when all these other teams have got it down on how to hire a coach? Maybe they won't pick the right coach, but at least they'll go through the process correctly. Like, I, I don't know. I don't know how he does it. Um, I don't know what Jerry thinks. It just doesn't make sense. But Coach Schottenheimer had his press conference today. Um, I did like the things that he said. Obviously, things sound great when you're day one on the job, but I like that, he's the offensive coach. That's great, but he wants to incorporate motion. And that was something that was like a breath of fresh air because I didn't see a lot of motion with Dallas. Motion, pre snap motion helps your quarterback out, make Dak's job easier. So I like that. I like that. He wants to mirror the run and the pass game. I like that as well. That's great. So if we can do that offensively, we'll be pretty good. But I'm also just worried because I've seen a Brian Schottenheimer led offense. He was the OC under Pete Carroll with Russell Wilson. At times got way too pass heavy. So do I want that? No. Like I think, sorry, little under the weather, so I had to clear the throat. But do I want a pass heavy offense? No. So I'm worried that Schottenheimer might go back to those old ways with Russell Wilson in Seattle. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he, I guess, learned from that. Um, you know, it's going to be a huge step. I think he has obviously the talent to do it. So now it's about executing and making this team disciplined. That's obviously his job. We've been terrible at penalties, so you make our offense great with the pre-snaps motions, mirroring, run and pass. That'll be great. And then limit the penalties. Easier said than done, but that's the thing that we need to work on. But I'm rooting for you, Brian. I really am. You did say you're going to win a championship in your press conference, so I'm going to hold you accountable for that. Maybe it's not year one, but you got 4 years to do it under your contract. So it needs to be some kind of progression. We want to see growth, development, bring in your culture, your system, and let's go win a Super Bowl, man. But it's going to be tough. Whew. Well, I had to get that off my skin, honestly. But that was that. I think that's good for this podcast. So I'll do my quick hitters. I won't do a fan tribute because I'll save that for Greg. But let's wrap things up on this podcast this week. Jerry Jones Award. I have to give it to Jerry. I mean, the comment that he made in his press conference was truly remarkable. I truly just cannot fathom what goes through this guy's mind. So a reporter asked Jerry today, Jerry, why did you pick Brian Schottenheimer to be your next head coach? And this guy literally does this. Has a long pause Long pause. Quote, I've only missed one Senior Bowl in my 35 years. Like that, what does head coach and Senior Bowl have to do? There's no correlation. So you deserve the award this week because that is the most ridiculous answer you could give in a press conference. Talk about deflecting the question. That's like not even close. I should stop talking about Jerry because it really just makes my blood pressure go up. But anyway, sports fact of the day. Let's get this over with already. January 27th, recording back in 2019 in the Australian Open men's final. Novak Djokovic won his record 7th Australian Open singles title, beating another legend, Rafael Nadal. So that is our sports fact of the day. And that will conclude this week's episode. So thank you, everybody, for listening and bearing with me on my Cowboys coaching rant. But we'll be back next week in action for the Super Bowl preview. So stick around and we'll talk to you guys next week.